Hi, this is a video on simple interest, the simple interest formula, basically how to calculate the interest using the simple interest formula, as well as how to calculate the total, including the interest earned or owed. So there is a formula, and it goes like this. It's I equals P times R times T. And I'm going to go through what each letter represents. So the I represents the interest. That's the amount that you earn based off of the rate and the time. You either earn it or it's the amount that you owe in addition to what you borrowed. The P is going to stand for the principal amount. The principal is the starting amount. It could be the amount that you put into your savings account, or it could be the amount that you borrow from a bank. Rate is for R. Now, in a lot of story problems, you'll see the rate as a percent. But when we're doing the calculations, you're going to convert that percent to a decimal. So the rate is a percent, but we're going to change to a decimal. Okay. The last one is time, or T, and we're going to base our time in years. So we're going to start off with an example, and then I'll try to focus on each of these terms within the formula so that you get comfortable using it yourself. Let's say that we have $600, and we're going to put that in the savings account, and the bank says that we can earn 5%. Okay. So we're going to earn, if we keep that $600 in there the whole time, so earn 5%. Now we decide to keep the amount of money, $600, in the bank for 2 years. Oops, sorry, I didn't spell that right. Okay. Now, normally in word problems, you're not going to have the shorthand. I'm just writing out the basics just because I write kind of slowly. But generally, it might read something like, a man put $600 in his savings account that pays 5%. He plans to keep the money in the account for 2 years. Okay, so I just kind of wrote it briefly here. But let's focus on the parts of the formula and how we're going to use them. Remember, I said that the principal is the amount that we put into the account or the amount that we're borrowing. That's our starting number. This is the principal. We're going to earn, in this case, we're earning a rate of 5%. Now, when we're doing our calculations, we need to change this 5% to a decimal. And so that's going to become 0.05. Notice it's not 0.5. That would be 50%. 0.05 represents 5%. And if you're not sure how to get that, you want to review a lesson that I did previously on converting percents to decimals. The last piece of information that we need is the time. How many years are we going to keep our money in the bank? Well, we're going to keep our money in the bank for 2 years. Now that we have all of our information, we're going to plug that into our formula. Remember, the I stands for interest, and that's what we're looking for. We want to know how much interest we're going to earn if we keep $600 in the bank for 2 years and it earns 5%. The other thing that we might want to know is how much are we going to have after the 2 years, the principal including the interest. First, let's figure out the interest. Now, the principal, I said, was $600. The rate is 5%, but we're going to change that to a decimal. So we're multiplying that 0.05 to 600, and the time is 2 years. So all we're going to do is multiply those three numbers to get the total interest for the 2 years. Now, one thing I want to mention before we get going is if I just multiply the 600 with the rate, that will tell me the interest that I earn for 1 year. And then if I change the years, like say to 5 years, I could just take the product that I get from this and multiply it by the number of years, which would be 5 in that case. And so you could do some additional problems to figure out how much you could earn or how much you would owe, again, if you're taking out a loan. Let's go and work through this problem. Now, in the Transmath 1 class that I teach, and if you're in that class, you're not allowed to use a calculator. You have to do all of your calculations by hand. In the real world, if you're faced with this type of problem, you might have your calculator on hand and you could quickly do it on the calculator. But for this class, we're going to do everything by hand. So 600 times 5/100. And I'm going to just multiply. So that's going to be 0, 0, and then 30. I could go ahead and bring down a 0, and then everything here is going to be zeros. I'm going to add up all my products. Make sure I bring down that decimal. And so I've got $30 of interest for 1 year, but because I'm keeping it in the bank for 2 years, I'm going to earn a total of $60 interest. Now, if I want to figure out the total amount that will be in my bank after 2 years, I just need to add that interest amount to my principal. So if I take the principal and add it to the interest, I'm going to get my total amount after 2 years. So 600 plus 60 is going to give me $660. Now, notice that with simple interest, you're not really earning a lot. There are other formulas that you could use. For instance, a compounded formula. That means that when you earn interest or when you keep the amount, your principal in the bank, you're not only earning interest off the principal, but you're earning interest off the interest that you've earned on the principal. And so you're going to get, it's going to grow a little bit more. The other thing that I don't know if you've noticed, but when you put money in the bank offers a lower rate for you to earn interest. However, if you borrow money, they charge a higher rate. And of course, the bank is going to win because, they're in there for the business. Let's look at some other problems. We're only going to focus our attention on simple interest. Let's see. Let's do one. Let's say we're borrowing some money. We're going to borrow $1,200. Oops. And we're going to pay 8%. Okay, so 8%. And we're going to spread it out over 5 years. Okay, again, I'm kind of writing it as shorthand just because it'd take a long time for me to write it out. So again, the amount we're borrowing, that's going to be the principal. This is the rate as a percent. We want to change that to a decimal. That's going to become 0.08. Okay, and then this is the years, so T. So our formula again is P equals, I equals PRT. So again, we want to plug in those numbers. We don't know what the interest is yet. We do know the principal is $1,200. The rate that we're going to be charged is 800ths or 0.08, and we're going to take the loan out for 5 years. So again, we'll go ahead and do all the multiplication by hand. But again, if you just want to figure out what the interest will be after 1 year, you can, this amount will tell you that. Because after, you might want to think, well, maybe I could pay it off sooner. Maybe I could pay it off in 4 years or 3 years or 1 year based off of this number. If this is a really high number, you might want to consider paying it off sooner than later because that 5 will make it much bigger. All right, let's do some calculating. Got 1,200 times 0.08. Got some zeros here. 8 times 2 is 16. And then we've got a 9. And we could plug in some more zeros. And it looks like 1 more. So we're just going to add. We've got the decimal, so it's going to be $96. So after 1 year, we're going to owe an additional $96. Then if we multiply that 96 by 5, got 30, 45, 48. Okay, so our total interest after 5 years will be $480. And of course, if we want to know the total amount that we'll owe the bank, including the interest, we're going to add our original amount, the principal, to the interest. So that would represent the total owed. Now there's one other thing I want to mention. Sometimes the time that you're taking the loan out or that you're putting in the savings account is not going to be a whole number. So for instance, if you had, say you're going to take out a loan for 6 months, okay, so 6 months, well, that's the same thing as 6 over 12, because there's 12 months out of the year, so 6 months out of 12 months, or half a year. And of course, if you just want to keep it in decimals, you can convert that to a decimal number, 0.5. Another one you might see is, say, 9 months. Again, if you're not sure, make the fraction in terms of months. So it'd be 9 over 12. That could be reduced to 3/4, or it could be converted to a decimal, 0.75. Another one would be maybe 3 months. Three out of 12, or 1/4, or 0.25. Again, if you're not sure how to convert between fractions and decimals, I have a video on this you could review. What about 4 months? Again, 4/12 becomes 1/3, or 0.33, and so on. So that's going to be continuing. You could just round to the nearest tenths or hundreds.